Good morning, everyone. We do have a Q&A section. We'll be taking questions throughout the webinar. If you want to drop any questions about the updates or features that are coming out, any other questions that you have, drop those in there and we will be answering them as we go. Patrick, thank you for leading the webinar. I'm just going to walk through all of our updates, things that are coming soon to look forward to, and I'll be managing questions as we go. Patrick, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I definitely want to encourage everyone who's here live. Please do take advantage of that Q&A. We can make this pretty interactive. Probably the main thing we'd want to call out is the work we're doing around just improving the scheduler kind of real-time responsiveness to what's on the calendar and whether you did or didn't do it. So some of you may have already discovered this setting. We announced it a few weeks ago, but I will highlight it here again because it relates to another thing that is new that we want to talk about today. And that is this setting right here. And I'm going to change it momentarily. And actually, before I even change that, I wanted also just a small little thing highlight. We did make some adjustments to the settings page. We've made a few rounds of improvements. Hopefully, it's easier for you to find things, and we do some cross-referencing because some settings relate to other settings, and the grouping has changed a little bit. So for example, this section used to be called Settings General, and now it's more specifically called out around scheduling related stuff. And in here, you will see this setting, and some of you probably have already used this one. This has been around for a while, but the new thing that came out is this option. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And what this does is it changes the way tasks and habits are assumed or not to be assumed done on your calendar. So we got lots of feedback from customers that some like the model of basically saying, look, if I didn't tell Reclaim that I actually did this this task, like or habit, maybe catching up on your email is a habit you have every morning. If I didn't tell Reclaim I actually did it, then I want Reclaim to immediately and kind of aggressively reschedule it back into the future. This mode that we've had for a while, and in particular this mode here where you say do nothing, kind of just assumed that the habit and the task that was on the calendar scheduled happened at the scheduled time. That didn't mean that it wasn't easy to fix that. The reason we defaulted to this model was that we felt like it was nice in that it nudged you into doing small mini calendar audits once or twice a day and taking a moment to reflect on how you spent your time. So for example, I could just be sitting here in Google Calendar and I could say, you know what, I didn't create those slides yesterday, and I could delete this and it would reschedule that time back into the future. But some people don't like that model and instead would prefer that Reclaim reschedule things into the future. It's especially useful for tasks where these are tasks that you really need to check off and you want them kind of following you around until you clear them out. And so that's what this new setting is all about. We have had this setting for a while. Frankly, if you use this setting, adding tasks back onto your calendar until you mark it as done, you probably will like this one better. This is we think an improvement, and you'll see that when you select that, those other options go away. And what's happening here, the animation shows it. I'm going to do my best to try to demonstrate it live in the product. The tricky thing about this is that you actually need time to elapse to really see it and feel it. So I will do my best, and this is a bit of an experiment. We'll see if I'm able to do so. But do try it out yourself if you're interested in this. But hopefully that visual gives you a sense of it. You know, you can see kind of right here, time is elapsing, and the user didn't say they started the habit, and so the habit moves when the time is ended for that scheduled time. And then similarly, when the user says they did start the task, it pulls forward to that moment it did, and then it counts it as done. So that's kind of the way it works. Couple things to note about this is you definitely can click in and say that you've started on something. And I'm going to go ahead and say stop for a moment. I just used the new Omnibar that we're going to be talking about a little bit more. The common way to indicate to Reclaim that you've started on it is to use the start action. And there's a start action right here. But there are other ways to do that as well. For example, I could just drag this any particular thing. So I could say, you know what, I'm going to have an early lunch and just drag it here. And as long as the start time is in the past, then that also assumes you started it. On the other hand, if I drag it into the future, like I say, I want to have a late lunch, Reclaim will not assume you started it when time goes on. So just keep that in mind as you use this feature. The assume started, it can come in a few different forms. Logging time, dragging it so that at least the beginning is in the past, or of course, clicking start. Those start actions also are available in the planner. I will skip that for today's demo. And so let's talk more about how we make it easier for you to see and act on the things that might be going on in your in this exact moment in time, or what's coming up next. And that, of course, is this Omnibar. So if you may have already noticed it, it is pretty similar, but actually in some ways more feature rich than a feature we launched last year, and that is our Raycast integration. If you're on a Mac and you haven't tried out our Raycast integration, I definitely would urge you to still do that. It's right here under Settings, Integrations. Raycast is a really wonderful free utility that gives you lots of capabilities well beyond what just Reclaim. And our integration with Raycast will do a few things. It makes it easy to join meetings instantly. So to join this webinar, on my keyboard, I pressed Control-Shift-J and then Enter. And I was right into the meeting, because I bound that keyboard shortcut to a function in Raycast with our integration that pulls up my schedule and highlights my next meeting. You can also do, I've got Control-Shift-L bound to pulling up my scheduling links. And then I can press Command-Enter on my scheduling links to customize one and get into the clipboard very rapidly a custom link that is personalized just for the person I'm trying to share a link to. So there's a lot of really great things that come out of Raycast. One of them as well is you can put up in your menu bar, your Mac menu bar, what is coming up on your calendar. And that was the inspiration for this Omnibar up here. So as you can see, this Omnibar shows me my next meeting. It makes it really easy to get to it from anywhere in the product UI. Of course, here is pretty straightforward. I can see it visually, but I might be over on tasks and I might be thinking about my work for the day and say, oh, I've got this meeting, what's that all about? And it takes me right to it. You can also see there's some really nice shortcuts, like joining the meeting instantly. So if it's just about to start, or it has just started, we will show you that. It'll say next or now and give you a nice, quick, easy link to get to. But let me show you a couple extra things that are interesting here. So let's just imagine that the meeting was actually happening right now. I'm going to go ahead and move it. And I'm also going to, you can see it already says now engineering team meeting, and I've got the nice join button. You can also see now when it's happening now, it shows me the next thing that's happening after that, which in this case is my decompression time. And we should see that pull forward momentarily. But let's make this a little more complicated. Let's also say that, I'm not real focused on this meeting. So I said that I'm going to start on my morning catch up at the same time. So I just dragged that to happening now. So now what we'll see is two things are happening next, or now. My morning commute. Oh, sorry, this wasn't morning catch up. This is morning commute. And so maybe I'm driving into the office while dialed into the call. And my engineering daily sync is taking place. And what you can see is there's some nice actions right here. And we surface up the Reclaim ones, since those are the ones we want to have at your fingertips as easily. And so I could restart it, I could stop it. And if I hadn't already told Reclaim that I had started it by dragging it, you would see a start button. And so this is where well, I'll pause here for a second. I'm going to try. Maybe I'll pause and let Elizabeth share any questions if they've come up, and I can use that time while she's repeating them to see if I can go manually modify the state of this thing so that we can see it in action as if I hadn't manually started it.
We do have a question on starting. I do want to say we were filming a video for YouTube demonstrating this as well, and I spent quite a long time waiting for the time to burn down to capture it properly. So you could check it out on YouTube there as well, where we have a video going over the Omnibar and the start setting updates. We got a question asking, does it matter when during the task or habit you press start? Will it auto start from the beginning of the scheduled time or when you click start?
Yeah, well, it won't if you use that new setting, it won't, of course, auto start at all. So that's the piece I was hoping to get here, and of course, I can't. See if I can. Oh, there we go. I think I might be able to do it. Just hang tight. Here we go. Let's see if this works. I'm going to reload just so we can see it live. So here's an example of what it would look like if I hadn't dragged it or clicked start ahead of time. So you can see there is a start button, and here when I click in on it, and then in the Omnibar, the start button as well. So anywhere in the UI, I can see, oh, I should be doing my morning commute. The way this works is it assumes you start it when you click the start button. And so when I click start here, you will see it pushed it outward, and then I can refine further with dragging the length to reflect the exact time that I want to spend on this thing. It defaults to in this case, in the habit, I believe the maximum time, ideal time. We also take into consideration when your next meeting is and whatnot. So we should see in a moment while the scheduler is running, the task and the decompression time shift now. And so I hope that answers the question. We are considering a mode where you can kind of retroactively in a single button click, just say like, oh yeah, I did start it when it was scheduled. Currently, you just witnessed it here. You can't do that in a single click. The way you would do that is you would just drag it down and kind of put it back at the time that you had kind of really originally started the work. So hopefully that gives you a sense of it. And again, you can always drag things around. And when you drag it, that also assumes that you started it, because you're telling us that at least the beginning of it was in the past. And that's a good enough signal to tell us you started it. And as such, all the buttons become stop and restart. The other thing I want to show you, this is where it's going to get a little fun. I'm going to move it into the past, and then as if I hadn't actually done it. So I apologize for this because it looks like I did it by dragging into the past. That's the normal behavior with this feature. But what I can do is cheat here a little bit and flip a little setting underneath, behind the scenes, and then run the scheduler again. And you will see what it looks like a few minutes after a task has moved into the past. It won't have that green check mark, but you should see momentarily. Actually, I guess I'm just going to create a test task just to force our scheduler to run. You'll see here when I create this test task, this should automatically shift back into the future or get pulled from the calendar, depending on, oops, I might not have updated this. Let's see. We'll give it a second. Or pull it from the calendar if there's no more time for it to schedule as per the regular habit settings. So I might have pressed my luck too hard to try to get this working without us all sitting around for half an hour. Elizabeth, are there any other questions or comments that have come up?
We do have a question from Anton asking, when I have a task active and realized I need a little bit more time to complete it and click add more time, usually through the Slack integration, Reclaim just adds a separate calendar entry with the requested amount of time instead of just extending my current calendar entry. As a result, I receive additional distracting notifications, and sometimes additional time is being scheduled separately, breaking my streak.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Actually, I'm going to move this into really into the past. That's going to count it as started again. And let's look at that scenario. So let's just say this is a a task that I want to spend more time on, and I'm starting it now. So let's go ahead and do that. And I think the core workflow that we're talking about is cool. Here it is. I'm spending time on it. Maybe actually, let's say I'm midway through spending time on it. Of course, this example, we're immediately scheduling more time for that same thing right afterwards. So in this case, it may not be that useful or that effective of a demo. But yeah, the add time workflow, there are some subtleties to it. So yes, I could say that I want more time. You can see right here, it is pretty much done scheduling sometime around 10:30. And let's say I know I'm going to need at least another hour. And I believe, what we're talking about here is, I'll just add 60 minutes, is we may see that time shows up kind of down here because you can't get another 60 minutes in between all of this. So let's see what happens as the scheduler works. Yeah, there you go. Now we've got create slides down here. I think what I'm hearing is it would be nice to just continue the work and stay focused. Well, the good news is that, and this works whether you're using the new manually started setting or not, this is just the way our scheduler works, is you can also just extend the time. So maybe you're going to say, you know what, I'm just going to keep going. I'm in the flow and I'm going to work through this meeting. I'm kind of a optional attendee. So let me just go ahead and drag that. And what you'll notice is that by dragging that in a moment here, we're going to see these other events disappear. There they go. A way to think about tasks is almost like it's a sponge, and it has a certain amount of capacity to soak up all the time that's on the calendar. So in this case, this task has 5 hours of time that it needs to soak up, and it's looking for time in the past and time in the future and time in the present, and making sure that's all getting scheduled. And so you can see here, there's still an extra 15 minutes that it was trying to schedule. Well, if I drag this by another 15 minutes, we're going to see this event is going to disappear because it effectively got subsumed by the task that's on the calendar. That should generally work for you. There you go. If you want to go even further, let's say, this is now your current scheduled plan, and you're like, well, I'm going to need another hour after that or longer. So I'm going to just keep going through these other meetings. Here's the thing to notice is if you drag an event such that you're actually expanding the total amount of time, watch carefully what happened there. Did you see how the duration just flipped to 6 hours and 15 minutes when I dragged it further? What that does is it effectively will add time to the task and expand that sponge to soak up even more of the time here. And now if I click stop, then it will truncate that time. Say an emergency comes up, I need to focus on something else. I will click stop here, and it will still say it needs 6 hours and 15 minutes. And all that time that just got cut out, we will see will get rescheduled back onto the calendar in the future. So the quick answer for you is just extending the time on the individual event should be sufficient for you to accomplish that workflow. We do understand that clicking add time might seem intuitive. And so we're trying to figure out how to balance these kind of different systems. So, let us know how that works for you.
In Slack, if they were going to do that, would they be able to extend the duration in Slack to have that same effect versus adding time?
No, that's a great point. I think that's something we should look into. Being able to say like, I'm in the flow, I'm in the zone, and I want to keep working on it. That could be a question we ask during the add time button, and kind of say like, do you want to extend it in this session or do you want to add it to the task? And that might address that workflow as well. That would be the equivalent of dragging and extending it here.
Got it. And then Justin asks, when expanding the time of a current task like you're demonstrating, can I do this in Google Calendar instead of coming into the Reclaim interface and still expect the same behaviors you're showing?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is something we spend a lot of time on to make sure that as much as possible, you can stay in Google Calendar. And a lot of these same workflows should feel very natural and continue to work. So just to demonstrate that, I'm going to extend this even further. And what we should see is momentarily, this should expand even further. If it doesn't, that would be a bug, and we want to correct that. it definitely, you can see it works in terms of expanding it. I want to make sure that the duration expands here momentarily when the scheduler runs. But yes, in general, it should be fine.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah, I'm loving the new Omnibar as someone who likes to start tasks as they come through when things, come up, or maybe you're still in a meeting and it's late and you've already sort of worked through that task time. It's just a great way to not have things slip through the cracks. And it's great for people who like that workflow better.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I will say there's a few things that are coming. Naturally, with this new setting, we know that not everyone's at their computer and able to click start through some of the interfaces that we offer, right? We've got Raycast, we've got the Omnibar now, we've got the Slack integration where you can click start. We've got our add-on, but those aren't always the most convenient interfaces. For example, I have an exercise habit on my calendar. And when I'm exercising, I'm not in front of any of those interfaces. I may or may not have my phone with me. And so we know that it would be nice if you could, speak into your watch or talk to your smart assistant, or if there was a native app, do voice inputs into an iPad or an iPhone. We know that that could help a lot with this kind of workflow. And so just know that is something that we're considering and exploring ways we can get more kind of low friction native interfaces out to you wherever you might be in the world and whichever devices might be in front of you. The other thing that is worth calling out is if you're like me, you might just forget to click start. That's okay. The job of Reclaim, Reclaim's doing a lot of jobs. One of them is to protect and defend your time. And so, for example, you can see, because I have this particular task tomorrow and this one as well here, my day is very busy tomorrow. It's already blocked up, and so people aren't necessarily going to be able to book meetings for me or on my calendar, and that's good. That's by design. These things are all at risk of being overdue, or you can see they have a due date of Sunday, but I don't work on the weekends, so they really need to be blocked out right now. They're already slipping into Monday, so that's why it's defended. But if I don't click start, if I'm just in the zone tomorrow, what you'll see is blank spots here at the end of the day on Friday, and those events will have moved into Monday. So there are some options for you to correct that. One is you can always just drag time right back into the past. So for example, I might say, and I can take advantage of the new rolling 4-day, 5-day window planner feature. I could drag events that got scheduled on Monday that I actually did on Friday and put them back into that blank spot. And that will tell Reclaim that I did that work. That is just the normal way that Reclaim works. So for example, I can also say, you know what, I actually did this particular bit of work early Monday morning, so I can drag it into the past. And again, this works from Google Calendar as well, so you can do that in either place. So do keep that in mind, that if you end up with more blank spots on your calendar because of this new feature, that not all is lost. You can just drag things around. You can also, of course, log time. We've always had this feature with tasks that allows you to log time. But one feature we haven't had that people have asked for is the ability to log time for habits. Also, we know that coming and clicking this little ... and clicking log work is not, and then filling in specific dates and times. It's not the nicest interface for that kind of thing. So I'm happy to share with you that very soon, we don't have it ready to demo today, you'll be able to click on any part of the calendar in the past and just log task or habit time right there on the calendar. And that'll make it even easier. And of course, just like that sponge metaphor, if you're logging time that's in the past, you will see that time disappear from the future because you didn't necessarily add more time to the task requirements. So we hope that'll also make this whole workflow a lot simpler for all of you. But keep in mind, with this feature, you may end up with a lot more blank space on your calendar, but very soon it'll be easy to fill that blank space back in. And that really kind of helps you better understand the core concept in these two workflows that we offer. In this mode, it's all about, it stays on the calendar and you pull things off of it to indicate what you didn't do. In this mode, things get removed from the calendar if you don't do anything else, and you need to put things on it to really truly capture what you did. And they're just two different states of mind. And there's nothing wrong with either one. And we'd encourage you to try each one out for a few days to see how it feels before locking in on one. Great. Any, Elizabeth, any other task or scheduling related questions? Otherwise, I can flip over to a few other little nice improvements we made in the last few weeks.
Let's get started with those. I have a couple questions for the end then.
Great, great. All right. What I wanted to highlight is how we've changed some of the interfaces for smart meetings and target calendar support. So you may be aware that probably our most popular feature request over the last few years was the ability to schedule things on the non-primary calendar. If you're not aware of that, you can come over here to calendars and you can see that you have a main account, but you can also connect other Google accounts. Very soon, you'll be able to connect Microsoft accounts as well. And you can connect within those accounts multiple separate calendars as connected calendars. But until a few months ago, connected calendars only indicated basically when you were busy. You always had to schedule your habits, your tasks, your smart one-on-ones. Everything had to land on the main account, the primary account. This worked for a lot of people because usually the main account was their work account, and the work account's primary calendar, the one that's listed here at the top, is the only calendar that is actually considered when someone is looking to find time to meet with you inside your corporate environment. So for example, this is what they see. If there's busy times on a sub calendar or your personal calendar, they wouldn't see those things normally. We've addressed some of those issues with Google Calendar by having features like Calendar Sync, which can create a busy event on your work calendar when you're busy on your personal calendar. And we've also done things like free and busy time for tasks and habits so that it appears as free and invites meetings when Reclaim already knows you have flexibility. But ultimately, we knew some people didn't fit the profile of kind of a full, that corporate environment where they needed everything on the primary calendar to ease the scheduling streamlining with coworkers, or they did, but they wanted some privacy. Until the last few weeks, personal tasks and habits, if you were set up where your work account was your main account, your personal tasks and habits would end up on your work calendar. And although they might be marked as private, that doesn't mean that, say, IT at your company could still view those things. And that could have created, potentially some awkward situations if, you had apply for a job on you as a personal task scheduled on your current work calendar. And so we've been putting a ton of hard work into supporting scheduling across multiple different calendars. And it's been a really hard problem, but and we've had a few bugs along the way, but it's pretty stable and really useful now. And so the way it works is you can add multiple accounts and connect multiple calendars, and any of them that are writable are eligible for habits, smart meetings, and now tasks. The only feature that doesn't support multiple different calendars are our buffer time features, and that's coming very soon. Currently, no matter where you're busy on any of your connected calendars, we will put the decompression time and the travel time on the primary calendar, but soon we'll put it on the other calendars. But one thing I wanted to highlight here is how these features work in tandem. So for example, Calendar Sync, you can see I've got it configured here to copy events from my personal calendar to my main primary work calendar. And I can also configure, if you didn't see it already, I've got personal as a connected calendar here. And then I can also configure my scheduling hours for personal tasks to go to my personal calendar. And so what's interesting about this is how all these features work together. So let me go ahead and make a personal task. I'll call it apply to that cool new job. And I'm going to make it a personal task. And I'm going to say it's due, not till the end of the month for now. And so I'll go ahead and get that created and scheduled, and we should see it land somewhere on the calendar on my personal calendar. So there it is. Oh, today at 7:15. That's wonderful. So it knew that with my personal hours, I had a lot more flexibility. So let's go find that. I'm going to show my personal calendar here. There we go. So we can see it's on the personal calendar, but not on the work calendar. And I have a calendar sync between my personal and work, but you'll notice it didn't even put anything over on the work on the work calendar. That's because it's free right now. It's free time, and it knows that it doesn't need to make that time busy or reflect on my work calendar in any way. But let's go ahead now and say, oh, that was a typo. I didn't mean it's due at the end of the month. I meant it's due like today, and let's say it's due tonight, sooner. Let's call it 6 p.m. Just to make sure it gets defended properly. So as I do that, we're going to see applied to that cool new job flip to busy. Let's reload here. Let's see. Give it a second. There's always the risk of live demos. There we go. It flipped to busy, and I got a nice privacy protecting block on my work calendar that no one can see that says I just have a personal commitment. Of course, this example is a little later in the evening. Hopefully no one's looking at my 7 p.m. meetings on my work calendar, but you could imagine these things could show up midday. Most of us work hybrid schedules these days, and it's a really great way to protect your privacy and have a kind of a multi persona environment. So I bring all that up to highlight, sorry, one of us was just like demoing these features, how they connect together, if you didn't know how that could work. But I also bring that up to highlight, this also comes up with personal, multi-persona types of scheduling with smart meetings. And I think actually I'm going to pause here for a second. Elizabeth, if there's any relevant questions, please feel free to bring them up. I'm going to actually stop sharing for a moment and share my my actual live calendar, because I think it's more useful to demonstrate, because I actually, this particular account only has one demo. It's a character from The Office, Kevin Malone, and I want to show what it looks like in the real world for me personally in this next step. So yeah, give me one moment.
A relevant question actually from Zach. Is there a way to manually force the scheduler to run? Will refreshing the page run the scheduler? It seems that you need to create a new task to force it to run.
Good question. You don't need to, there is no button to force the scheduler to run. The scheduler should automatically run within about 10 to 15 seconds of any change happening on your calendar, not just creating a task or doing something to an action or any sort of planner action, but just literally an event, replying to RSVPing to an event or creating a new event. You should see it auto run. We've thought about adding a button, and we may still do that. One thing I will note is our goal is that you should never really feel like you're waiting for the scheduler to run. I know sometimes it does feel like that's happening. In the last couple of months, just speaking bluntly, Google Calendar itself has gone through some major platform upgrades. They're not talking a lot about it. And as they've been doing that, we've had to change some of how we are syncing with it. And so the last couple months, frankly, have been a little rocky and sometimes slower from a user experience standpoint and how fast we were able to run and apply some of the changes to your calendar. Hopefully you've noticed some big improvements in the last few weeks as we've addressed that. And we later this year have some other improvements we're making that should make it so that we can run the scheduler in seconds of any sort of change and not wait for synchronizing it to Google at all. All that's to say is our hope is you don't need the manual schedule, force the scheduler to run button. But from a pragmatic standpoint, we may still add that. Either way, if you really want to, kind of trick it into scheduling, you don't need to create a new task. You could also like move an event on your calendar, and that would do it within a few seconds. Okay. Here is what I wanted to share with you. This is a small but really delightful little improvement, and it took a lot of hard work. So you're actually looking at my real Reclaim production account. You can see here, I'm supposed to be in the founder webinar series, and I am. So I could even join this meeting from within this meeting, which would be a little meta. But what I wanted to show you is how we improve the target calendar support specifically for smart meetings. So I just walked you through generally how you can use target calendars to kind of reflect your personal identity in the different facets of your life. For example, your personal life where you're doing things that you don't want to be seen at work necessarily. And so in this case, let me show you, maybe I want to make sure that I've always got time for a lunch with my wife at least once a week. That's a goal we want, in the middle of the day. And so I'm going to go ahead and set that up. Here we go. And something you're going to notice here is that it says no calendar access. My wife is not a Reclaim user. Something I keep bugging her to sign up for it, but she's not a Reclaim user, and she has never shared her calendar to my work calendar. And so you can see if I set this up from my work calendar to with her, Reclaim is saying like, well, we don't actually have access to her availability, so we may not schedule at the best time. But if I change this to my personal identity, it's a subtle little thing, but you notice that my personal calendar does have access to her personal calendar's availability, and we show something different. And so if any of you have used Smart Meetings, you may have noticed that this setting, the target calendar, used to be until a few days ago way down here at the bottom. And we were kind of confusingly still saying Patrick at Reclaim.ai over here. And it just wasn't a really great experience. And so we think we've improved that quite a bit. And I hope that as you use the target calendar capabilities within Reclaim, you see some of those same improvements. We have more to do on this front. Scheduling links, we want to introduce some of these same concepts. Something else that's coming soon with scheduling links is the ability to override whether we should be intersecting hours across all the attendees or we should just be honoring yours. If you haven't seen this setting, you will see it soon in scheduling links. The way it works is, just to kind of drive that point home, I will just pick one-off hours for myself. And so you can see here, this is saying like, okay, Patrick is good doing this any day of the week, but the default meeting hours are only Monday through Friday, and it's kind of highlighting the intersection. But I could say, you know what, don't worry about intersecting them at all. Just follow my hours. And now there's no more hour selection at all. And it's just using what I picked here. And so this is a nice feature as well, if you're using Smart Meetings and soon scheduling links, to kind of simplify the time range selection so that you don't have Reclaim in trying to resolve time zones and personal preferences. All right. I think those are the main things we wanted to highlight today. Elizabeth, we could go over to any remaining questions and then probably wrap up.
Yeah, we've got 7 minutes left. We have a couple roadmap questions.
Sure.
We've got a couple more questions just came in. Let's see if we have any. Okay, Dawn asks, how do you change hours? And can I create different work hours for different projects I have?
Oh, absolutely. Not only can you do that, you can even wire it up with some of our integrations. So to change your hours, a couple things to note. Let's first highlight a few things. So by default, we have 3 standard sets of hours: working hours, meeting hours, and personal hours. Meeting hours are not available for tasks or habits. They are strictly for Smart Meetings and scheduling links, and they're the default hours for any new user or anyone who hasn't signed up for Reclaim at all in the case of Smart Meetings, if you add them as an attendee, like was the case with my wife. They default from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, but you can come in once you have a Reclaim account and customize them. Working hours and personal hours are the times that you want to be eligible for your default working and personal tasks, as well as your default working and personal habits. And so you can see you can customize those things. This is where you also configure how your tasks get scheduled on your different calendars. And so you'll see those options for working and personal hours here as well. And this is where you can customize those defaults. So I'd strongly encourage you to lean into the defaults and fine tune them here. But as you questioned, you can also create additional custom hours. So you can see, for example, for me, in this case, early mornings and late evenings are kind of when I get my best focus time done. And so I've captured that here. And when I create a task, that is an option for me as well. And so you can schedule different tasks, and you can also use it for habits. With your custom hours, you can choose what they're eligible for. And so in this case, you won't see the deep work or focus hours available to Smart Meetings or scheduling links. unless you check these. And so in this case, this was one that was really for tasks and habits. So we made it only available for that. The other thing to know is that when it comes to habits and smart meetings and scheduling links, you can also customize the hours. And so not only do we show you these pre-canned ones, you're not customized, you can make one-offs. And so one-off hours let you just not have to make a separate scheduling hours in your global settings. If you know this is something that's just for this habit or just for this smart meeting or just for the scheduling link, we would recommend you just do it here. You don't need to make a separate set of scheduling hours. You should really only do that for things you want to reuse. So for example, for a long time, my lunch habit just had one-off hours. And I just said, probably between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. But then one day I realized I wanted to have a scheduling link that I could share with friends and say, hey, if you ever want to grab lunch, you can pick something here. And I then went back and made a lunch hours option that I use for both my habit and my scheduling link. And I actually use it as well for a smart meeting with a friend that I have quarterly. We catch up and have lunch together quarterly. So that's an example of how you can do custom hours. Did I answer all the parts of that question, Elizabeth?
Yes, and I did share a YouTube link too if you wanted to watch a video on custom hours and theming your week around projects and stuff like that.
Oh, yes, that was actually one quick thing I did want to highlight. I'll be very fast because I know we've got other questions. If you're using our ClickUp or Todoist integration, you can go even further with these capabilities. You can see here, you can actually set up sync rules. We hope to add this to our other integrations in the future. Right now, it's only for Todoist and ClickUp. But if you're using those, you can map projects and labels and route them all the way to your different scheduling hours as well. And that's a really powerful platform concept that you can start building out a nice kind of operating system for how you work.
Awesome. Justin asks, on the scheduling settings page, can you discuss the 3 options under event scheduling? I'm not clear on what those options really mean.
Yeah, frankly, this is something that we're going to be fine tuning. We've been talking internally about how we can make this more clear. So you're not alone. This is our default one that's selected here. And what it's doing is it is for the most part, I'd say all 3 of these options for the most part respect the priority of things. So critical, high, medium, low. We have 4 levels of priority in our platform. And then within those priorities, we prefer smart meetings first, habits second, tasks third. That's generally how it works. However, we got lots of feedback from people, and it's very reasonable that when it comes to tasks, it's a little complicated because you might have a high priority habit that's on the calendar, or heck, even a high priority task that you might actually want to not schedule ahead of, say, a medium priority task that is due today. Right? There's this challenge and this tension around something that is due soon and lower priority, and something that is due later and higher priority. It's that classic, if you're familiar with the phrase, the Eisenhower matrix. There's concepts like priority versus, sorry, now my brain is suddenly blanking on this. The Eisenhower matrix, Elizabeth, help me out, is urgency, importance, and urgency, maybe was what
Yep.
is it? Yes, thank you. And so obviously you want to spend all your time on important and urgent work, or important and not urgent work, but sometimes you might spend your time on urgent and not important work. And so this setting is the one that kind of tries to feather tasks in. But sometimes that's not the model you want. And so if you're finding lower priority tasks, scheduling in advance of higher priority tasks or habits, it may be because of this setting. And so we offer a couple of other options here. This one will not use the due date at all. And so what this one will do is it will guarantee that we will always schedule higher priority habits and tasks before lower priority habits and tasks, full stop. So this model is one we would recommend, especially if you're leaning into smart meetings, because one thing that can happen with this model is with smart meetings, you might have a mixture, a range of high and medium priority meetings, and then tasks could start pushing off some of those smart meetings. A critical smart meeting will never get pushed off by anything. We have special rules in place no matter how overdue and how high priority a task is. Critical smart meetings and habits never get trumped, but lower priority ones could. And for your attendees, that might not be the right experience for them. If you're making a bunch of tasks and they're all urgent and they're all overdue and they're all high priority, that could be pushing off some of your meetings. You might not want that. And so consider this option as a nicer framework for that. But it does come at the downside of it won't feather in some of those lower priority things that are at risk of being overdue or currently overdue. This third one and this first one are very similar. The only difference between them, they both involve some of that feathering. The only difference is that the first one also considers not only the due date, but how big the task is. So a task due tomorrow that requires 30 minutes is not going to get as aggressively scheduled relative to other potentially higher priority items as a task due tomorrow that requires 10 hours of work, because you're really running out of time when there's that much work remaining and it's due that soon. So we take both things into consideration. So I hope that helps clear it up. We do have a lot more planned for how we can maybe even get rid of some of these settings or change these settings and do other kinds of optimal scheduling. But it's a hard and very personal problem. So we're trying to give you some ability to express yourself here.
Awesome. I know we're a little over time here. We've got a couple roadmap item questions. Maybe we can just power through real quick.
Yeah.
I know this isn't a topic of today's session, but still looking for an update on the Outlook integration.
Yes, the quick update is we have for the last couple of months been in private beta with a read-only access of Outlook where it could go from calendar sync and right to a Google Calendar. That's been working really well with a small set of customers. Just this week, we opened up the private beta for the full platform, read and write, with tasks, habits, smart meetings, all of it. There's still a lot of work for us to do. We have a lot of polish to do. We need to integrate with the full Microsoft ecosystem, things like Microsoft Teams, Address Book, Microsoft To Do. We're not going to wait for all of those things to be 100% done before we open up to public beta and then eventually GA. But we do think we're going to be onboarding. If you're on the wait list, we should be onboarding hundreds, if not thousands, of additional users in the next few weeks. And I believe we'll probably be in public beta, if not generally available sometime this quarter.
Amazing. Is there an update on decreasing the minimum event timeframe from 15 minutes to 5 minutes?
No update to share. It's a popular request, and we are considering it. Just haven't gotten there yet in terms of prioritizing on the roadmap. But stay tuned.
And then the last question for today, are we working on a mobile app for Reclaim?
We are not actively working on a mobile app right now, but like I mentioned earlier, we know how important it is, especially for that kind of low friction, especially voice-oriented inputs. Also, it'd be really nice for doing things like sharing scheduling links while you're, text messaging with a business partner. And so we know it's important. It is on the roadmap, but we're not actively working on it right now.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Patrick. I know we went a little over here. Thank you to everyone who made it out today to chat with us and ask great questions. This will be uploaded to YouTube if you want to watch it back later and send in the follow-up email. Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to demo everything and share your real calendar live with everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will see you in August, which is crazy, next month.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.